Vasco and Andre. And we're going to talk about the Amazon, of course, not the virtual shop. Talking about the real deal, the Amazon. Actually, there's some similarity between this Amazon and the shop. Both of them have a big catalog of products in their big catalog of products, but of course the forest is much bigger than the virtual shop. And the idea of this talk is really to show a hidden part of the Amazon, which is the people who live there that nobody knows. So before we start, let's just see a bit of what we're talking about, just to remind us what the Amazon is and what the Amazon represents. Let's see. Hold it. Play another one? There you go.
Do you think you know the Amazon forest? It is much more than you can imagine. Did you know that 25 million people live there? That is almost the size of India and Mexico together. That it holds 20% of all fresh water in the world and 10% of all living species. That it balances the world's climate and temperature. And even before all its greatness, could you believe that we have already deforested 20% of it? Today, we are one step away from turning the Amazon to a desert. And if it happens, our lives will suffer an irreversible impact. But what can we do? You and I was born from this question. We believe that the peoples from the Amazon are the guardians of the forest. It's their presence on this region that keeps the forest standing. That's why we created an Amazon digital territory, where it's going to be possible to meet those people and unveil a never-seen-before Amazon. There, we will connect to them and amplify their relations with the world. Having access to campaigns from those communities, we can participate in this support network for them, for the Amazon, and for all of us. We are responsible for the planet's future. Connect yourself to the Amazon and be part of the solution. You and I.
So, of course, we could be here for 1 year talking about how important is the Amazon for the planet, not only for Brazil, but we have only 1 hour, so I think we should go straight to the point. The Amazon now, it's in risk, I think more than ever. Scientists says that the forest, of course, has a power to regenerate. When you cut the forest, it can regenerate. But if you cut more than 25% of the forest, it won't regenerate anymore. It becomes a savanna. And we already cut 20%, and now the numbers are rising again. Actually, we've been cutting the forest. The history of Brazil is the history of cutting forest. Of course, the whole country was forest, and we've been cutting. In the 70s, when we created the first highways cutting the Amazon, that's when the deforestation really rised. And since then, we've been dealing with the question, with this issue, but nobody really took action. 15 years ago, the government, if you see here the pic, 15 years, we were cutting 24,000 square kilometers of forest every year, which is 10,000 square miles a year. And then they changed the policies of protecting and with guards and all kinds of actions, and it really worked. It was very successful. In 7 years, we dropped from 24,000 kilometers to 4,000 kilometers, which is 1.6 square miles per year. So we thought we finally learned how to preserve the forest, but then the government changed. The government at that time, they had an agreement with the agribusiness, and in the last 7 years, the numbers are rising again. We thought we had to learn how to protect the Amazon, but we didn't. So, and especially last year, last December, after the election of the actual president, during his campaign, he said that he was gonna finish what he called the industry of environmental fines. And so this was like a sign to people to say, well, we can cut the forest because we won't be heard. And so in the last December, it really raised a lot. But the bottom line is that we really can't depend on governments to protect the forest. I mean, only in the government. Of course, we need laws, but we can't depend only on them, because when we thought everything was going well, suddenly it changed. Well, like here in the US, to be honest, really, if you have a different mind, you really should change the way to go. So the things that who really protects the area is the people who live there. That's the thing. So the idea of the project is, the idea of the project is to empower the people who live there, because there are quilombolas, indigenous people, settlers, riverine, because these people, they depend on the forest. They live on the forest. They do what we call the economics of the forest. So they explore the Brazil nuts, acai, flower, and all products of the forest. They depend on the trees and the whole thing, the whole system to live. And that's why we need to empower them. Because today, this is the kind of Indians, and this is riverine people who fishes. And today, they're they're completely non-connected to the world, and so they pay for that. For instance, yesterday I was going back home. It was after a conference. I was going back home, and I stopped at the whole market to buy something to eat. And I bought this acai. I like acai, so I bought this little can of acai, and it costed $4.5. So I told Rogério, who's seated there. Rogério lives in Pará, and he works with acai. He collects acai, and he was shocked with the price of this little $4. And because he sells his acai, he sells in baskets. It's like 60 pounds. Basket costs $12. So in that little can that I paid $4.5, he got probably 4 or 5 cents, and he produces the acai. This because there's a very long chain of people who buys and sells till it gets here, till it gets to the whole market, and they don't, because they're inside the place, they don't have access to the market, they don't have access to different buyers. So connection could really be a weapon for them to live better, to doing exactly what they do, to get more money and to get better pay and to organize their life better. So this would be one reason. But that's not the only reason that connection would be very important for the Amazon. There's another very interesting example. In the end of last year, in September actually, when we decided to start this project, the team of the company went to the Amazon, and they found Gervásio. I always call him the name of his father, Gervásio. Gervásio, he's the leader of a community, 30 families, 300 people more or less, and he lives in a very difficult place to get. It takes like 2 days on boats when you get to the nearest airport, actually. So it's very difficult to get to this area. He has 60,000 acres. This is the space of his land for these 300 people. And he has a big problem. He has this forest, beautiful, huge trees, and underneath he has aluminum, gold, diamond, and some years ago they found oil in this area as well. They can't use it because it's too far away from any place that they could make it possible, but anyway, at some point this will happen. And of course, I mean, he's very happy with his life. His community is a very nice place, very healthy people. His father is 84 and just had a couple of twins, so he has a brother, 9-year-old brother, very healthy people, and but everybody's interested in the land. So in beginning of last year, he was offered $12 million for his area, for some logger company to explore the timber. And he said, no, I'm not interested, because I don't know what he would do with $12 million. I mean, he can't have SUV, there's no roads or anything. So he said no, but people is insisting, they want to get to his land. So in the last month, he was ambushed twice, but he escaped, he didn't die. Now, in the last month, he's carrying his shotgun everywhere he goes, and he's quite sure that he's gonna die this year. He said, I'm not gonna make it to 2020, because they really want to replace me and find a leader that would want to get the $12 million, and when this happens, of course, the wood will go, and then probably somebody will plant soy, and then cattle, livestock will come, and probably in 10 years it will be just a savanna. And his story is not the only one. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people like him. So that's why we thought, and he's completely invisible. If he dies, nobody will know. So that's the point of connecting and making these people visible, actually. Because now, I mean, we have this, if we think about conservation, we have this 60,000 acres protected by this only weapon. This is the shotgun that he's using now. But we think that the new generation can have the solution for him, which is, this is his village, which is connection. So I'll leave it to Vasco to tell us more about who the quilombolas are and go from there. Vasco, just for you to know, Vasco was born in the Amazon. He looks like a Dutch guy, but he was born in the Amazon. He lives there for, I saw a picture of him like a baby with Indian kids. It doesn't look like one, but it's the real deal.
Thank you, Fernando. So, good afternoon. Thank you everybody for coming. It's really nice to be here. I see so many familiar faces as well. And what Fernando so expertly told about is something that we have been trying to tell people about, is that the Amazon is much more than what people think it is. And when you talk about the Amazon, very few people know that over 25 million people live in the Brazilian Amazon. So I run an NGO, it's called Ecam, and what we've done ever since our founding is trying to help and working with communities to help put themselves on the map, literally. And that's usually where you have to start. Because when we look at the Amazon, we either see green or deforestation, but we rarely understand the dynamics that come out of why you have deforestation or why an area is protected. And really, the Amazon is a social network. It has been a social network even before colonization. And so, the way we see the Amazon today is because people made it that way in many ways. So you have the Brazil nut groves, you have the Black Earth. The Amazon is a place full of people. And those are the people who are in the end going to make the decisions that will determine the future of the Amazon. And for that, so in this case, for example, when you look, this is a satellite imagery from the state of Rondônia over the years, and you can see the expansion of deforestation, and there in the middle is the Suruí Indigenous Reserve. This is an indigenous community that was contacted only in 1969, and it made a decision to protect their land. So the exact, you can see the straight lines, those are the exact demarcation lines of their territory. So you can see that the deforestation goes all the way up to their territory over the years. And this image was done in partnership with Google to really help tell that story. But again, you need more. So why is it that that area that's green continued green? It's not enough. This by itself doesn't tell the story enough. And if you look at where people live, if you actually map or allow them to put themselves on the map, you'll see that where people really live are inside the green area. And outside you have cows and soybeans, but you don't have necessarily the amount of people who live in that green area. And that's something that we are still not used to. We think that green areas is a natural area. That's where people are not living, because in much of our experience, that's how it is. So this is what we wanted. This is what I wanted to talk about. Is as we've worked with communities in the Amazon, we started mapping out, okay, who's talking about the Amazon? Who's making decisions about the Amazon? And this is a study that was done by O2 in partnership with Ecam, and it shows a little bit about people talking about quilombolas in the Amazon. And of the 45,000 pages that are, or interactions about this, only 500, so that's 1%, are actually owned or directed by the quilombolas themselves. So it means that when people are talking about the Amazon, discussing it, we get very, very low input from the people who are actually living there. And again, those are the people who have the biggest interest in the future of the Amazon. The Amazon, as Fernando said, is important to all of us for climate, for biodiversity, for so many different things. But in the end, it's the home to these 25 million people who live, as Fernando said, they're riverine peoples, they're traditional peoples, but also people who live in urban areas. Manaus, Belém, the big cities, smaller cities. These are all the people who have the greatest interest in seeing the future of the Amazon, and they are the ones who should be involved. But what this graph shows, this pie chart shows, is that those are not the people we're listening to when we're talking about the Amazon. So in that case, so here we're now to talk about the quilombolas of all the different groups. And I want to go quickly back to what Fernando said in terms of the people living in the Amazon, the different people in the Amazon. And I don't know if you noticed it, but it said they're entrepreneurs. So recently, together with USAID and IDESAM, a Brazilian NGO from the Amazon, put together a forum to help, and a Shark Tank to help collect ideas from Amazon entrepreneurs about business ideas they had, how to take Amazon products and services to the world. And over 100 different entrepreneurs from the Amazon signed up, which was a surprise because very few people actually knew it and never really had understood how many people are really looking to engage with the market, engage as entrepreneurs, have products that they want to take. And again, unless you are there and organizing it, it's very hard for somebody who's outside to understand that many people are trying to do these things. And also for them it's really hard because they don't have access to the same types of capital, resources, technical resources that we have here. And so that disconnect, again, that disconnect between talking about the Amazon but not connecting with the Amazon, the people that live there, goes beyond social media. It's in influx of capital, it's in, as Fernando talked about, it's connecting to the products and services that are being produced there. Because those in the end are going to be the things that are going to determine whether the forest stays or goes. And so getting back to the quilombola, when we started our work, we started, as everybody does when they're working in the Amazon, with indigenous peoples. And there are lots of numbers around there. About 23% of the Brazilian Amazon is demarcated for indigenous territories. It's a success story. It really is a success story, where the Brazilian Constitution in 1988 gave the right to indigenous peoples to have their lands demarcated, and the Brazilian government, together with partners, really went out and did a very good job. There's still lots to be done, but you're talking about a territory that's over 100 million hectares. So it's twice the size of Texas. That is today demarcated for the use of indigenous peoples. But you're talking about 200 to 300,000 indigenous peoples who live in those regions. So again, you have a large amounts of land that are dedicated to these groups. But when you start thinking about, okay, who are the rest of the 25 million people who live in the Amazon? And you very quickly get to the quilombolas, and the quilombolas are descendants of runaway slaves. So they were brought to the Americas, and when they arrived, they looked around, and someone said, hey, this looks a lot like where we came from. And some of them managed to escape and set up their own communities. And in Brazil, those communities were known as quilombos, who set up their own essentially kingdoms, communities, and hid away as much as they could from the authorities. And when slavery was abolished in Brazil, these communities continued to live in these regions, and they were essentially forgotten. They are truly the forgotten people of the Amazon of Brazil. So when we started our work, and I'll show this a little bit later, with quilombola, there was very little information available, whether on the internet, maps, or anything else. And so that's why we wanted to get started, is to say, okay, how can we help get their voices and their stories told? Like the story of Jauari. And so this is a video produced by O2, by Andre, which I think really helps capture that story of the quilombola. I think it's really a masterpiece. Thank you.
Falta o mundo conhecer de fato o que é a Amazônia.
Para muitas pessoas, talvez a gente nem existe, né? Mas a gente existe.
E nós somos parte da Amazônia, porque a gente vive dentro da floresta. Essa área de ocupação, esse histórico, foi tudo por uma questão ainda de escravocrata, né?
Nós somos descendentes dos fugitivos, né? E nós somos raízes negras.
A família do papai, a família do meu avô, pela parte da mamãe, tudo é amigo régio. Tudo era quilombola.
Eu tinha um avô que foi ferrado. Colocam no fogo e pegam aqueles ferros e ferram ou na coxa ou na costa. Colocaram candeia na mão dele, para ele alumiar os senhores, né?
Ele não queria passar por isso, ele se escondia. Eles passavam de semana escondido no mato, com medo.
Eles venciam mata, pedras e água. Que eles atravessavam cachoeira, nadando. O meu avô me falou que uma tia dele atravessou com uma criança na costa.
A importância disso, eles estavam em liberdade.
Hoje, a gente diz, a escravidão acabou, não acabou. Ela modernizou.
A gente se sente hoje ameaçado.
Tem pessoas que não ganham salário.
Na cidade eu vejo gente negra passando fome.
Então isso para mim ainda é escravidão.
Não é uma abolição verdadeira, né? Que nos trouxe toda essa consequência.
Ser quilombola, ser o fundador de um país, usava os escravos para construir tudo. Hoje, o nosso Brasil, ser o Brasil que nós somos, foi muita força dos quilombolas.
Tenho um orgulho de dizer que eu sou quilombola, o sangue que corre aqui na minha veia é negro, é afrodescendente.
É uma história de sofrimento, mas de muito orgulho. Ser quilombola para mim é eu me reconhecer e assumir a minha identidade própria, assumir minha raiz.
O quilombola, ele é cuidador da floresta. Acabou a floresta, o que vai virar com isso? Um deserto, miséria, fome e tudo. Jamais.
A briga que a gente teve pela titulação da terra foi porque essa terra é que deu a garantia de vida para nós.
Essa luta ela não é fácil, não. Lutar pela vida, lutar pela terra, a terra é vida.
Isso para mim é riqueza. E que é importante para mim. E estar cuidando disso como uma riqueza para o futuro dessas crianças.
E a ideia nossa sempre é preservar, conservar e viver sempre na comunidade, garantindo isso para nossas futuras gerações e os parceiros que estão aí nos ajudando.
So, and quickly before handing off to Claudinette, I wanted to show a bit of the work that and where she's from. So when we started working on quilombola issues, we went to the agencies that are responsible for quilombola communities, whether government or NGOs or others, and there simply was no map of where quilombola lived in Brazil. There was nothing. So through a partnership with USAID and Google, together with the National Quilombola Association, we started working on collecting that information. Because if you're not on the map, you're not being heard. So same way as that pie chart showed in terms of who's talking about quilombola issues or the Amazon, the same is here. If you aren't on the map, it becomes really hard for you to influence anything else that's going on. So this is the very first time that the map on the left, the green spots, is all the municipalities in Brazil that have quilombola. You're talking anywhere between 7 to 16 million people. And why is there such a huge range in that number? Because it simply hasn't been mapped. Only in 2020 will be the first time that the Brazilian Census Bureau will include the question and the information on quilombola in the census, in the national census. That'll be a really important advance. And so Claudinete is from, Claudinete and Rogério, who are here, they're from the northern Amazon, from the region that the video showed. It's above the city of Santarém. And those are their territories, the 8 quilombola territories, including the very first quilombola land demarcated in Brazil, titled in Brazil, which is Boa Vista, from where Claudinete is from. And to be able to title all those green dots, the Brazilian government at the current rate will take over 300 years. And that's just the ones, the quilombola communities that are recognized today. So just to understand the level of effort that's going to be needed to ensure that the quilombola are recognized and have the rights to their territories. But in this case, where they're from, because of a coalition that included private sector actors, including a mining company, the quilombola themselves have been able to get their lands recognized. So it's not only the very first quilombola territory, also the largest. Again, it appeared in the video, which is Cachoeira Porteira. So in this case, you have these 8 quilombola territories, 37 communities that live in these 8 territories in the middle of the Amazon, and somewhere about 10% of the population in that region is quilombola. So it's a really significant part of the population which isn't represented. And so I wanted to present Claudinete Collet. I met her over 10 years ago. She's the very first quilombola woman to lead her organization, the organization that represents all the quilombola in her territory. She's also a university student in systems engineering. And she also was a student in our Google courses that we gave on collecting data using phone applications. And so she led the efforts to map, together with Rogério, to map and collect data on all of their territory, on all of their communities. And this was also presented that work at the Geo for Good Summit last year at Mountain View. And so I wanted to hand over to her because she's the reason we're here.
Boa tarde a todos e a todas.
So good afternoon, everybody.
Eu sou Claudinete Collet, vim da comunidade quilombola Boa Vista Trombetas.
So I'm Claudinete Collet. I come from the quilombola community Boa Vista.
E estou muito feliz de ter poder deixado também meus filhos, minha família lá na floresta para estar aqui compartilhando um pouquinho da nossa experiência com vocês.
So I'm very happy to be here. I've left my children and my family in the forest to be able to share here with you a little bit of our story.
Como o Vasco falou, eu sou líder, coordenadora da associação Ecam.
As Vasco said, she's the leader of their association, Ecam.
E essa associação é uma associação que representa as comunidades quilombolas lá no município de Ariramba, Pará.
And this is the association organization that represents the quilombola in her region of Pará, the Brazilian Amazon.
E ela foi fundada em 1989 com o objetivo de proteger, de defender.
And so the organization was founded in 1989 with the goal to defend and support the quilombola communities.
E muito além disso também de dar voz para as comunidades quilombolas na defesa e na conservação das comunidades no território onde nós moramos.
And most importantly, to give voice to the communities to help them defend their territories.
Então, esses slides eles mostram um pouco dos trabalhos, das atividades que nós desenvolvemos no nosso dia a dia.
And so some of these slides show a little bit of what they're doing in their everyday life.
Seu Mariano na roça para tirar a mandioca para produzir a farinha.
So Mr. Mariano in his agricultural plot, taking up manioc.
O O projeto Quelônios da Amazônia, que é projeto que tem objetivo.
So the Turtle Project, which has an objective
de proteger, né, os quelônios de lá da nossa região de extinção.
Which is a project to help preserve or protect the water turtles in their region.
E o evento do Consciência Negra, Dia Nacional da Consciência Negra, que nós realizamos.
And so also what's in Brazil is the 20th of November, which is Black Awareness Day.
Que é uma forma de organização também que nós temos para esse dia, a gente levantar uma pauta de ações voltadas para a área ambiental, educacional, saúde dos territórios quilombolas, em conjunto com indígenas e toda a sociedade civil de lá do município de Oriximiná.
So it's a moment of coming together to defend quilombola rights, to promote healthcare, education, and not just with the quilombola, but also with all the other communities in those regions, including the indigenous people.
Então, esse slide também ele mostra a nossa cooperativa, que foi criada recentemente, a Copa Flora.
And so this slide talks a little bit about our cooperative of forest products that was recently created, called Copa Flora.
E ela tem o objetivo de escoar e de fazer boas-vindas dos produtos que nós trabalhamos, retirados diretamente da floresta.
And the reason for the cooperative is exactly to be able to bring forest products to market.
E lá a gente diz que a floresta é o nosso shopping, né? Tudo que nós precisamos, a gente tira da floresta em perfeita harmonia e equilíbrio com a natureza.
And so as they say, the forest is their shopping mall. And so that's where they find all the things that they need to either take to market or to use.
Então ela foi uma forma de organização que nós conseguimos justamente para a gente poder dar saída para os produtos, valorizar o trabalho dessas pessoas que estão lá no dia a dia produzindo seus produtos diretamente e protegendo a floresta de certa forma.
And so the cooperative was really a way to organize themselves, all the people who were already finding products, taking forest products, and helping them find a better way to create value.
Ela também é leampa, que não tem só quilombolas, tem indígenas e ribeirinhos, assentados.
And so it's not just quilombolas, it's a great also initiative in terms of unity. So there are riverine people who are members, indigenous peoples who are members.
E também porque a cooperativa é uma forma que a gente conseguiu da gente poder também captar recurso financeiro para a gente trabalhar esses produtos diretos da floresta com os povos que vivem na Amazônia.
And so the cooperative is also a mechanism, a vehicle to be able to capture additional funds to help them promote this work and grow it.
Meu colega Rogério, que está aqui também, é o presidente da nossa cooperativa hoje.
Rogério, who heads the cooperative, and he, Rogério is truly an amazing person. I met him first at one of our mapping courses. He came straight from the forest and he said, I'm just here to substitute for somebody. I've never used a computer in my life. The closest I've come to a computer is holding one for somebody else. At the end of the week of training, he came out as the best student, using Google Earth to map his territory, and he's done this ever since. He has helped map a territory that's almost as big as Holland. His mapping efforts have helped lead to fishing agreements, which have reduced conflicts and protected many of the fish stocks that they have. He's been able to show his community through his mapping work that they could get a better, they could do better management of their forest stocks and their timber stocks. And he truly has been the best student we've ever had in the work that we've done with Google Mapping in 20 years. So I really wanted to recognize him. And this is somebody, again, who before he did the course had never ever actually used a computer. So it shows a little bit.
Então, depois da gente falar um pouco sobre a cooperativa também sobre alguns pontos que para nós é muito importante e relevante.
So, after talking about the cooperative, I wanted to talk about several things that are really relevant and important to us.
Nós temos alguns pilares que nós trabalhamos, como a sustentabilidade, geração de renda, educação, saúde, meio ambiente e entre outros, né, para a melhoria das comunidades.
And so several of our pillars are sustainability, healthcare, education, access to internet, all these things that are really important to our community.
Mas para tudo isso acontecer, a gente precisa ter ferramentas que nos ajudem a executar essas ações, esses planejamentos dentro dos territórios quilombolas.
But for us to get there, to get better healthcare, better education, we need tools to be able to achieve our goals.
E deles está aqui, é o Fundo Quilombola.
So one of them is the Quilombola Fund that they have set up.
Que foi uma ferramenta que nós conseguimos realizar em parceria com o Ecam e outros parceiros, para a gente conseguir recurso financeiro para trabalhar todas as demandas que venham a apoiar esses povos, na verdade, porque eu não falo só de mim quilombola, eu falo de um modo geral entre indígenas, ribeirinhos e assentados, para que a gente consiga executar todas essas ações em proteção do meio ambiente na Amazônia.
So this is a fund, a financial mechanism that they set up to help them access resources for the development of their communities, for the things that they need, and not just the Quilombola communities, but all different types of communities in their region.
Ele tem todo mecanismo legal, transparente, para poder a gente estar executando essas ações.
And so it's a legal instrument that they've set up that they're already using to transfer or to receive funds to be invested in the community, and it's governed by them.
Porque é muito fácil a gente olhar para a Amazônia e não ter um olhar crítico. A gente que está lá, a gente está pedindo socorro, a gente está em ameaça. A Amazônia vive ameaçada constantemente. E se ela morrer, não morro só eu, morrem todos nós.
So it's very important to understand that we live under pressure and under threat. The Amazon needs everybody's help, and that if we don't do something, the Amazon will cease to exist.
Então aqui eu vou me levantar porque em agradecimento desde já eu quero.
So she's standing up to thank everybody.
Quero falar assim para vocês, né, que a Amazônia é a minha casa, a Amazônia é a minha vida.
So I want to tell everybody that the Amazon is my home and my life.
Tá no meu sangue, tá no meu coração.
It's in my blood and in my heart.
Peço a união e a colaboração de todos vocês com que nos ajudem, com que nos apoiem nessa causa, que ela é nossa.
So ask for unity and your help to support us in our cause.
Vamos unir os elos da corrente, cada de nós em prol desta Amazônia, em prol dessas vidas que vivem lá e que defendem esse meio.
And we're going to link up in a chain to defend the Amazon and our people.
Obrigada.
Thank you. So I'm going to pass it on to my colleague André, who's going to continue the presentation.
Well, what an honor to be introduced by colleague Nash. Thank you. Well, my name is André. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm working here with O2 Films and Ecam and the Quilombola people. Well, unfortunately, the people in the forest are not seen as value for most of the companies and society. The current and past administrations of the Brazilian government also have seen these people as an obstacle for what they call development. Massive dams, 100,000 acres soybean farms, and uncontrolled mining, roads that lead to nothing but logging, illegal logging. And the destruction in the Amazon is a process underway, and I can tell you that's much more coming. It is a horrible situation of injustice to its people and a waste of our natural resources. And it only happens because the decisions regarding the forest destiny rely on hands of the people who are outside the forest in their air-conditioned office, without considering the territory particularities, its people, and biodiversity. There's even a story about how the Trans-Amazonica Highway started with a slash on the map, and it's a trajectory promoted a lot of disease among the indigenous people, and contaminations that affect the Juruna, the Cararaô, the Paracanã, the Arara people, killing hundreds and almost bringing extinction to these people by the year of 1972. So the intelligence to find solutions for sustainable development and boost the forest economy is in the head and experience of the local inhabitants like Claudia Nachi here. I want to talk about the North American nun, Sister Dorothy Stang. She dedicated her life to protect the Amazon, and once she said that the only way to know how to help the poor people is to spending time with them. And I agree with her. I think she was right, and you can apply this to the forest people as well. If you sit down with Claudinete and Rogerinho for 10 minutes for chatting, lots of ideas will pop in your mind. Of course, that not many of you will have this incredible opportunity because they live far away in their territory. And So if communication can help to narrow this gap, narrow the gap between those who are inside the forest and those who are outside, it will benefit us all. Who is inside the forest can find support, and who is outside can find a way to help and maybe start to understand your role as part of the ecological system. So how can we really make a difference? I have been asked this question so many times. Everywhere I go with my films, with my projects, everybody asks, it's very common the audience asks these questions. And to be honest, I gave a lot of vague answers. I say, share the link, give us a like, vote better. And today I'm very happy to be here and give you a much better answer. Because now we created this new tool. We are creating this new tool that can give you much better. So a way you guys have to know what better to do, to really do like Sister Dorothy used to say, to spend some time with them, even from a distance. Not listening to me, though, but listen to the forest people's voices, the forest's own voice. I think that's the whole point of this presentation, and that's why we brought Claudinete and Rogerinho here. And in my opinion, when you stand by Amazonian River, like this one on the picture, all the water that flows, the smell of flower, of wet flower, and you start to imagine all the animals under this water, and how beautiful this is. And Mother Earth did it with so much perfection. You must want to say, just thank you, Mother Earth, thank you, God, thank you, the spirits of the forest. And it's not about religion, it's about the feeling of belonging to a very unique and special world. I'm pretty sure some of you had this feeling where to climb a tall mountain, or when you're close to nature, to a big amount of water. I think it's not just in the Amazon, I think many of you have experienced this. So the spiritual connection to nature is very clear to the indigenous people and to the quilombola because they live there. But it's not so clear to us, it's not so obvious to us in our fast cities routines. So UNI, that's why we brought it. UNI, Union, Nature, Intelligence, Innovation. It's a big, bold dream, I know, but I think we can do it together. The tripod that keeps UNI standing is communication, connection, and knowledge. The people who actually live in the Amazon will tell you how you can help. Of course, that you can still share the link, give it a like, and vote better. But now you could put your boots in the forest and maybe help to teach some English. You could buy their products. You can help them to develop a new technology. You can help them to develop a boat engine powered by sun, or a machine to dry nuts. Oh yeah, here's the website going. Thank you, John. And as long as you are well accepted by the community and your action has a positive impact in the forest, there is no limit, really. There's no limits. You can, of course, it must have these two things I said, because the communities are protagonists on their land management and in their communication. I strongly believe that all communication must have an objective. And maybe that's why we can start to help to save the world. So UNI Amazon.co is online, and the content created by the quilombola with the quilombola is really beautiful and original. Please check it out. I want to tell you about some successful examples. In the UNI website, you find crowdfunding campaigns as well. So this is two examples that I would like to talk about. The first one is about the Quilombo Rega Santa Rosa, the Water Santa Rosa, was supported by 352 internet users. It was for drilling a well of water and distributing to the community. The other one, it's the Yawanawa House of Art. Yawanawa House of Art. It was supported by 227 internet users, and it was for the construction of a place to production and to exhibition of Yawanawa art in the Mutun village in Yawanawa. No, it's not. It's okay. So well, they did it. It was, well, succeed, but it was really hard. And I donated for both initiatives and helped to spread. And I wanted to bring it here just to show how an online campaign can really reach the territory. So we are talking about real things. It's not just in the internet. But why so hard? Well, this idea that I present here today relies on internet. And internet, as it is today, it is insufficient for us to achieve our goal. I say this not just because of the lack of antennas in the legal Amazon. There is another problem. The internet is not free. The networks are not permanent. They disappear as fast as they start. In the last years, each new campaign in defense of the environment, we had to start from zero and begin to engage a new network. It happened in Belo Monte announcement of a war, the water law, indigenous rights, Old Lord Savannah, and many other films and campaigns. We realized that in the internet, it only shows if you pay. So after 2011, it became quite hard to spread campaigns, no matter how interesting it was for the internet users. And even there's this story about the Demarcation Now project, where we had this beautiful video clip with 28 of the main music stars in Brazil. We had Gilberto Gil, Maria Bethânia, Elza Soares, and it was a project with Greenpeace. We reached more than 4 million people. And in the next month, there was in the Supreme Court in Brazil, they're going to judge if the Guarani Kaiowá community would have his land or not. And we needed all the people that was sharing the links and watching the Demarcation Now project to be part of something and to get to know more about this judgment. So we did another film called Demarcation Now, Marco Temporal Não, about the cutoff date of 1988. It's a theory that says that Michel Temer, the president at that time, he was saying that the indigenous population didn't have the right to have their lands because they were not in their lands by 8th of June of 1988. It is an idea, a wrong idea, that ignores the fact that many of these indigenous people were kicked out of their lands. In '88, we were just coming out of a military dictatorship in Brazil. So that question we were asking, the indigenous people and the quilombola people were asking to the judge is, if they were not in their land in '88, where were they? They must be somewhere. And I was really, really sad that we had only 23,000 plays. So we went from 4.6 million to 23,000. So these people wanted to know about it. The people in the internet, they wanted to know about it, wanted help, but we couldn't do more. The internet didn't let us do it. So where's the network when you really need it? This is something that made me suffer. I was feeling so alone. After a while, I realized there was other people that was feeling alone as well. So the next steps for our project, for our UNI project, well, we have a huge technological challenge here. We want to transform the actual simple website in a platform that allows direct communication. This is something we want to do in 2019. And we need more internet sign-up. Unfortunately, the satellite internet is expensive and don't work well during the rainy season. So how to bring the good quality internet to the most remote areas of the Amazon? I really hope that some of the bright minds here in this audience can help us to do that. It's a big challenge. Ecam brought some satellite internet to these communities, and that's this equipment we are doing the work with them, thanks to Ecam and this initiative. So they are really hidden, and internet connection can bring some light. Help us build a free internet for the Amazon. UNI creates a space for a loyal network, a network that is there when we need. We want it to have scale and depth, and to be present wherever is needed. And there's many organizations that already work in the Amazon and work for the well-being of local communities. We want to unite, strengthen and scale for a global impact through local action. So it's a really hub, it's a really place to put everything in the same place in the internet. Be part of the Amazon territory. To make it happen, we need you. We need people to access, we need your help. And this project is not ours. It's the quilombolas people and the indigenous people project, the Amazon people's project. So we have to change the way the world sees the Amazon, and to do that, a collaborative effort is needed. This massive rainforest with continental dimensions is showing to be fragile and vulnerable. As humans, we have to do more. We can do more. I invite you to be part of it. Connect to the UNI. You can plant this seed too. This card that you received is also a seed. Plant in the soul, plant in your mind, plant in your heart. And oh yeah, who didn't get it, it's right here, the seed card. So thank you for the attention, and now we will be opening for questions. Questions?
Go ahead. What?
Would you like a glass of
One.
Thank you.
What's the question?
No,
Back
I
there.
don't have a question. I don't have a question.
Back there is a question.
Thank you everyone on stage for talking today. You mentioned the governments might not be the answer to protect some of the lands that you're aiming to help solve. What do you think of models like Douglas Tompkins in Chile and Argentina, which is private individuals that are purchasing large tracts of land and trying to protect them that way? Or you mentioned the crowdfunding platform, so as I understand that helps people living in the land develop projects locally. What do you think is the most effective way today if the governments are not stepping in to protect that land?
So that's what we've been talking about. Is in the case of the Brazilian Amazon, the most effective solution is to work with the people already living there. It's not an empty space. So, and you're talking about a scale where purchasing land is not a solution in the Brazilian Amazon. If you can work with indigenous groups who are responsible for the use and management of over 100 million hectares, for example, that's much better than trying to purchase land, especially also because the Brazilian Amazon and permanent titles or title to land are not that well arranged. So the legal part of that makes it very difficult as well. And it isn't the best solution. The best solution is to give the people who are living in the Amazon the tools that they need, and that they know, and they know exactly what it is that they need to be able to achieve their goals. The plans that they put together, the quilombola are putting together life plans. Indigenous peoples are putting together management plans, the 50-year plans of the future. That is where investment is needed, not just quilombola and indigenous peoples, the riverine people who are living in the towns. The Brazilian Amazon has this great movement that's called Hip Hop of the Forest, which are young people from the slums of Brazilian Amazon cities who are coming together using hip hop as a way to pass the message for preserving the Amazon. So you have all these really, really great stories of supporting an Amazon entrepreneur, finding a way to support them to build solar-powered canoes and boats. That's just one case. Or helping Copa Flora bring their products to market. That is where you're going to find the solution. You're not going to find the solutions top-down. And that's what we've been trying to say, is that to achieve what we would like to see a future for the Amazon is to understand it as a social network with people who are already living there, who are looking for ways to connect. And the UNI platform is one of those platforms that can help make people understand and also finding ways to connect to solutions.
And in the Amazon also we have a big problem of fraud in the land system.
Yes.
So they say that in the Pará state there are 4 layers of owners. So it's really buying land in the Amazon doesn't really help. In the Brazilian savanna is a good solution because it's where the soybeans is growing a lot, and so buying land is a way to stop deforestation of the Brazilian savanna, but not in the Amazon.
So you mentioned the challenge of connecting the local producers with buyers that would be more fair. Is there a platform like that exists today, or thoughts about creating a platform like that to help lower the number of intermediaries for distribution?
There is a platform.
There's the Origins Brazil. It is, I mean, in the UNI website, we'll have other platforms, other people that are already working with doing this bridge between the people selling products on the forest. We don't want to do everything, and so we have the Origins Brazil, and you also have the Connexus. It's other partner that are mapping many initiatives and startups that work with projects from the Amazon. Once you have the contact, the communication, you can send Rogerinho, he's the president of Copa Flora. Once you can chat with him through UNI or get at least his email and his phone number, this is already a start, so you can start buying. We don't want to be in the middle, we just want to help.
And it comes for both ways, as I was talking about. For purchasing the products, but also for investing. So on the 18th of March, USAID, with many partners, including Brazilian companies, Natura and others, is going to announce a social impact investment fund for the Brazilian Amazon with about $100 million eventually to be invested in Amazon businesses who are then hopefully be able to use those resources to take their products to larger markets. So So it goes both ways. It's also of finding products and finding people who are already producing and helping them to gain greater skill.
Yeah, the idea is a hub that you can find anything. If you put, I want to buy acai for in big scale, probably it will be taken to origins or to sites that does this. On anything you want, you go to this, because there's so many NGOs working in the Amazon. So many people wanting to help and so many people needing help. And nobody's connected. The Amazon is like divided between different NGOs and the regions for each one. I'm just trying to create a hub that puts everything, you can access anything.
And about product and scale, and sometimes because we live in capitalism, we think that maybe indigenous people and quilombola people also think on that logic, and they don't. They don't want to just sell acai. It must be a small part of their routine where they can make some money. So the idea is not they don't become a massive producer of one product. We have to respect their way of life. They still need time to do their parties, their celebrations. So we don't want to take our way of producing things to them. It's really just helping some of these projects too. And so not just one community have to produce everything. So that's why UNI is nice. So you can have, you can bring scale, but with multiple producers.
I think we have two.
I was just very curious to know what Claudinette, that is the one that had all this story of take care of the land, what she would answer to his question. Eu não sei se você entendeu, ele perguntou como o governo não protege, o que poderia ser feito. E eu fiquei muito curiosa, você que vem dessa história quilombola.
Como o governo protege, desculpa,
as terras. Como o governo não protege as terras, o que pode ser feito?
Eu gostaria de só... Fiquei curiosa para escutar a resposta, a sua resposta.
Então, nós mesmos, a gente tem que criar essas alternativas, esses mecanismos de proteção, que é dever do governo também proteger, não só a Amazônia, mas o Cerrado e vários outros meios de biodiversidade que o Brasil tem. A Amazônia é principal, é dever dele, mas enquanto isso não acontece, nós, quilombolas, indígenas e ribeirinhos, a gente tem que fazer a nossa parte, né? Dentro desse mundo que é a Amazônia. E a gente tem algumas alternativas, como por exemplo a demarcação dos territórios, os territórios onde os quilombolas, os indígenas e os ribeirinhos moram, ocupam, é uma área que quase 100% preservada dentro do nosso município. Porque a gente não deixa que o madeireiro ilegal, que o garimpeiro, que os grandes projetos de desenvolvimento socioeconômico do país entrem nessas áreas e executem essas ações.
So, just to summarize, what you're saying is through legal recognition of land rights in the Amazon is one of the important ways for the riverine people, indigenous peoples, quilombola peoples to have legal recognition to their lands, so that they can continue to protect it, manage them in ways which have been much more effective at protecting and managing those lands than other ways.
I have a question for Claudinette, and I'll ask in English so everyone can understand. Coming from the forest and having your life and your family in equilibrium with the forest and living in harmony with Mother Nature, it's something very unique of your way of life. What is your impression from our way of life here? Claudinette, sabendo que você, sua família, sua comunidade vivem em equilíbrio e harmonia com a floresta, como você enxerga a nossa vida aqui e a ausência dessa conectividade com a mãe natureza, com as forças da natureza?
Bom, primeiramente...
Pode ser dura.
Desculpa, gente, que eu estou com um pouco de tosse. Eu vejo que a gente acaba perdendo forças, né? quando a gente tem dois mundos separados e que não conseguem se unir por uma causa própria. Como eu falei, essa causa ela não é só minha, ela não é só de quem está lá na Amazônia, é de todos nós. Eu sou apenas uma andorinha. A gente tem que somar o máximo possível de andorinha para a gente tentar ter a preservação desses ecossistemas. Então, isso não é muito fácil, é muito difícil. Eu sou uma liderança aqui, que eu vim trazer minha voz para o mundo, pedir ajuda, na verdade. SOS, mundo, ajuda. Porque, assim, as causas são difíceis, as lutas são difíceis. Nós temos dificuldades que na Amazônia alguns conhecem. Tudo é muito... Sim, esqueci do baixo.
So her answer is, it's very hard when we divide ourselves into two different worlds. If these two different worlds can't come together around one cause, that is the real challenge. And so she said she's only one little bird, that she came here as a leader of her community to talk about this, but it's something that we all should unite around.
É aquela coisa, se o meu país em algumas coisas ele não me ajuda para preservar, eu vou pedir essa ajuda para o mundo.
And so if my country, my context doesn't rally around what I need, then I need to go further and ask for the world to help us.
Acho que ele está perguntando o que você acha da nossa vida na cidade, assim. Essa vida nossa, maluca.
É uma vida meio louca, assim, né? Porque,
What do you think about
mas eu entendo que é o modo de vida de cada povo, né? Cada cultura é uma coisa. Eu vim para cá, achei bem legal a cidade, as pessoas. Isso é bacana, mas é muito diferente de uma realidade de você viver em um meio que não tem prédios. Prédios são as árvores. Onde tem rio, você pode nadar, você pode comer uma comida ali totalmente saudável, que não tem agrotóxico, não tem nada.
Você não gostaria de morar no lugar?
Não, só passear, né?
So it's very nice to visit here. She really enjoyed Austin, but it's a very different world where the buildings are the trees. It's very different from where she comes from, where you can swim in the rivers. You don't have to worry about toxins in your food. The food you eat is very, very healthy. So yes, she wouldn't want to live here, although it's very nice to visit.
Yes, she wouldn't want to live here.
Lá em casa, na minha casa. Lá na minha casa, na comunidade, não tem chuveiro, banheiro. Aí a gente tem que tomar banho no rio. O rio é quilômetros assim de largura.
O maior banheiro maior.
É o maior banheiro que.
So at her house, they don't have a shower or a bath. You take your bath in the river, which is kilometers long.
Bigger bath, I should say.
Yes.
Hi. So I work for Rainforest Partnership, and we're based here in Austin. And I really liked what you said about empowering the communities on the ground as the best solution. I think that's exactly what we're trying to do as well, working with different indigenous and local communities in Peru and Ecuador. My question to you is, how do you make that investment case to investors who may want a lower risk investment, let's say if they're trying to tackle climate change, of investing in like clean energy and like efficient streetlights in Norway, which is a very risk-free investment in a way, but on the scale of impact that we need, we really need the Amazon right now. There's a lot of, I guess, more uncertainty, at least in the minds of these investors. So how do you make that case of these are solutions that we should be investing in?
So, até perguntou sobre como que você consegue convencer investidores a assumir mais risco. So one of the ways that you do this is talking about scale, but also is to bring these realities closer together. So we have a program that's called Sharing Worlds, which is very much like UNI, which is helping people understand the realities of what the Amazon is really like, and having people be able to connect directly to understand what the risks are, what the returns are. I've been doing this for over 20 years in terms of working with communities, and to me, it's within communities that lie the answers. So whether it's a rainforest community or it's a community in a city, in an urban area, it's when communities are able to come together and look at what the solutions are. And so how do you convince investors? Like I said, we helped the USAID develop the very first Indigenous Red project, where we were able to get resources for protecting the forest, for example. The risks are high, but the risks of not doing anything are much, much higher. And so you have these mix of investments. I don't know if Red's still here, but there's an example of making investments where you are prepared to take losses, obviously, because there's a lot, and that's what Fernando said, there are lots of people already working on this in the Amazon. And many times, many things have already been tried, and we just don't know that. So that's why UNI is also such an important platform. Because today, what we need today is not new pilot projects. What we need is scale. What we need to do is take all the lessons that we've had over the many years, and from indigenous peoples, from quilombolas, from entrepreneurs, from NGOs, and bring those lessons up to a point where we really can give them the skill that's necessary for the challenge that we have. And for that, and the answer is never just funds. I mean, you can take $1 billion, throw it in the middle of the Amazon, and not have a single bit of impact. But you can take a $100 investment with the right person and have a return that goes much, much beyond it. So always be very hesitant about people who say, we need $1 billion, or we need $100 million. It's not that. The resources that need to be invested are human resources, technical resources, and financial resources. It's the solution that people are presenting that needs to be tested. And like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. People respond to solutions, not just to saying this is how much money is necessary. The money always comes. Funds always arrive if you are on the right road, if you are developing solutions that you need. But people need to understand it, they need to have a path to it, they need to have mechanisms to be able to make those investments. But the big difference are the people. Are people who want to make this difference, whether it's in whatever job that you're doing. It goes much beyond just donating. It really is getting involved wherever you can, however you can, and in everyday decisions that you make, that anybody makes. So it really is much beyond, and investors have to make those same decisions. They are going to have to make decisions about, and for that you need information. And so that's why we are here, and that's why that's why O2 has put together this platform. UNI, that's why Ecam has supported this work, is how do you get the information to people, and how do you get people to start talking to each other directly? And the internet was founded for that, right? Even if it hasn't lived up to all that potential, it really is to connect people. And again, what Andrea was talking about, through all that experience that you've had with the internet and how to do campaigns, is to really take that knowledge and now take it one step further for all the 25 million people who live in the Amazon and connect them to the rest of the world.
And just for an example, the quilombola people, the Claudinet's territory is the main producer of Brazil nuts in the world. So you probably ate some of the Brazil nuts that came from their hands. And so they have a lot of this amazing product that has a very good price nowadays, expensive product. The world wants this product. And you have, in the past, projects from people that came from overseas with lots of money and it didn't work. And you have projects that, with less money, that people really did it with the quilombola that are working. So just to, in this case, it was very clear, Rogério can explain better, he was the one who told me about this. But they have this amazing project and this example how it's not just about money.
Okay.
One last question.
Last question.
Oi, Claudinete, prazer, Vitor, sou paraense também. Fiquei muito feliz de conhecer a iniciativa de vocês aqui. E, bom, a gente sabe que o governo brasileiro nunca teve como prioridade a proteção da Amazônia, só que o novo governo tem posições e opiniões bem radicais sobre isso. Eu queria saber se vocês já estão enfrentando alguma nova dificuldade, algum novo desafio com esse novo governo.
So the question is whether she's already seen new challenges with the new administration in Brazil, whether they're already seeing new challenges to the protection of the Amazon or to their rights.
Então, a gente já está enfrentando, na verdade, né? Nós temos hoje 3 grandes projetos de desenvolvimento socioeconômico que o governo, como o nosso novo presidente, ele quer implantar na Amazônia, e que esses 3 grandes projetos, eles nos afetam diretamente.
So there are 3 large infrastructure projects that have been announced exactly for their region.
O primeiro deles é a construção da hidrelétrica no quilombo de Cachoeira Porteira.
So one of them is the construction of hydroelectric dam within one of the quilombola territories.
A BR-63, que é uma rodovia que vai interligar o norte do Brasil com o sudeste.
And another is the highway to connect the area of Brazil with the rest of Brazil. And Suriname, other countries.
E a ponte no município de Óbidos, que vai também interligar Santarém com Óbidos até a fronteira do Brasil com o norte.
And a large bridge over the Amazon.
E todos esses 3 projetos, eles passam dentro do território quilombola.
And all of these 3 infrastructure projects go right through the heart of these quilombola territories.
A luta que a gente está tendo hoje com esse nosso governo é porque ele deu para nós um título de terra, que é um documento que nós somos donos ali daquela terra, que nós temos que cuidar e manter a nossa subsistência dela, mas ao mesmo tempo ele vem com um grande projeto desse e diz, ó, essa hidrelétrica vai passar em cima da tua casa. E aí, o que é que eu faço?
And so the challenge is that on one side, the government has given them title to their land, on the other side, with the other hand, is designing projects that will go right through their backyard.
Porque o mesmo governo que ele dá um documento, um título da terra, é o mesmo governo que diz, ó, vou implantar esse projeto, sai daí e te vira. Então, o nosso governo brasileiro hoje, ele não nos reconhece como povos que vivemos ali na Amazônia, e não poucas pessoas, são muitas pessoas dentro da Amazônia, e essas pessoas, elas têm, como eu já falei, essa forma de vida sustentável com o meio.
And so it's very important for the government to recognize that, and it currently doesn't recognize that they live in that region, they have lived in that region for generations, and in a way that is sustainable.
Eu digo da seguinte forma, que nós, quilombolas, nós não somos contra os grandes empreendimentos, mas o que nós queremos é que o governo também nos respeite como seres humanos e que tenha um processo de consultar esses povos. A gente precisa ser ouvido, porque vai passar por cima da nossa casa. Isso não acontece.
So one thing that he's always said is that as a people, as a quilombola, are not against large projects or infrastructure projects, but what they want is their voice to be heard. Because if these things are going to affect them, their voice has to be heard in that process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.